Hey, for various reasons, we have an unprecedented, let's be excited about this. It's not something good. Third video on a single round. Some of it may be my bitchiness and sickness and whatnot and confusion that came from the illness. But some of it comes from this key card here, which is this Grand Coalition, which I believe is meant to represent the Grand Coalition against Napoleon. The only thing that I'm aware of that uses that term, or something close to it, or there were multiple coalitions against Napoleon. Now, it's possible that there's something I'm missing. I did Google the term, but it wasn't great. What that did was, as the turn was winding down, it generated more military cubes for everyone. And we'll see if there's another coalition of some sort to represent the Napoleonic Wars in the second deck, or second half of the H4 deck. But it basically made everyone have to choose a side. Now, one player had already passed, that's Austria. They had to choose a side and got some free cubes out of it, and they win, But because they're not allowed to declare war. And that qualifies with the event. But the other countries, there was basically a decision to go anti-Turkey, because Poland is the one who kicked this off. There was an anti-Turkey war last turn. There were truces all over, but those don't apply. The event card does supersede those. So Poland started, triggered this coalition against the Turks, which kind of makes sense. The Turks are a revolutionary government, as shown by this little red thing, which is not part of the game, but there just aren't enough religious type counters to cover everything you need to in the game. So something like that bothers me more in a really, really well-produced game. When I look at, Empires of the Middle Ages, where I have to use various counters for things that aren't in there. And honestly, the original EU, it's less troublesome to use, little counters for control markers and stuff where there aren't any. In this game, it's a little bit more problematic. I'm not bothered by this one, but there are others that do. For example, I'm using this, I think, for a counter-reformed Catholic. It's an Orthodox counter. There just aren't enough. Now, I could make more counters, and probably would have to, but the counter mix is not sufficient, at least with the Eastern board in play. Maybe it was sufficient for the main game. That's a common problem. The player mix is not sufficient, in my opinion, for the grand campaign in the full game. But there are other factors in the grand campaign that I think need fixing. But anyway, getting away from that and back to the, hey, what the fuck's going on? So the turn had largely been kind of a nothing turn, right? Up until that card. People were padding their own situations. Poland was getting Kaffa from Genoa. Stuff like that was happening. But no one was really engaged in anything too big. The 7 Years' War, which is sitting over here, had been not ignored, but people had their points in it, and nobody had the fat left in their country to conduct wars. A problem that sort of runs through the entire game, at least this playthrough of it, which is that there just isn't enough resources available to do the colonizations that you expect historically, or to generate the wars that you expect historically. There's a lot of drain on the cubes, and I'm really not sure. Like, just adding more cubes doesn't seem like the right answer, because those cubes can be used to recover your country from problems that they historically had difficulty dealing with, or to engage in wars, right? And what we have is actually a world that's fairly peaceful in a lot of cases. Britain, France, Austria, not so much Poland right now. They're having some struggles from event cards. But are all relatively stable, no unrest in them for the most part. maybe some religious dissent, but no real problems. Whereas the countries that are having problems, and those problems include the revolutionary ideology, the kind of problems that France had in its period of revolution, and the wars that it was involved in, wars that they took on, right? I mean, to some extent, they triggered the war. Those wars may have happened anyway, but France really made a move against the coalition that was forming against them. Anyway, that could happen due to this event. However, things like the real 7 Years' War, the War of Austrian Succession, stuff like that, really hard to have those happen because you have this choice: fix your country or engage in wars. And if you go into wars without fixing your country, you are badly, badly fucked in this game. We've seen that happen. You might win the war, you might do okay in the war, probably not, because you've got serious problems underlying. But you're going to have one hell of a time. Like, you're just going to collapse afterwards. And it's very clear and obvious to the players, by consolidating all the resources into these cubes, which are, you know, this weird abstraction and whatever, they make it possible for you to choose to get your country in order rather than enter a war. Now, the original game had the same kind of problem in some ways, which is, hey, my country's not in good shape, I don't want to enter a war. But it wasn't the case that everybody's country was in bad shape. And what would happen is players would look at somebody who's in bad shape and pick on them, because they had enough fat that they could start the war and they could cause the problem. And then you put the hard choices that really should be there. But for the most part, this game doesn't do that because everybody's so stressed by the unrest in their countries that they largely have to spend too much of their cube resources. Now, there's another resource that cuts in that does this, which is the turn, the round status, which is, with 6 players, if 4 people stop wanting to do anything, you're done. Too bad you had all kind of stuff you wanted to do. Too bad. And too bad you had the resources and everything to do it. It's not your option, man. And it's not like it's time. I mean, you could argue it kind of is, but it's dependent on how many cubes everybody else has. So only if other people have a cube excess and you do, are you able to push, you know, push your agenda beyond a certain level. And that's very disturbing. Anyway, onward to what happened with that war, which we get backtracked from. Various countries had to decide what they were doing. Spain decided to join the polls against Turkey. Why? Because Turkey's winning the game, basically. The other option would be to go against Poland. I can't possibly gain anything against Poland. There are possibilities of stuff happening with Spain in the war. Plus, the nice thing, France. France also declared war on Turkey. Why? Very little reason. But they wanted to oppose the Turks in general. They didn't have much they could do. They're probably not going to get down here, whatever. But they just, you know, saw it as kind of a, yeah, we'll support the war against Turkey. That put England in an interesting position. They could get more military cubes by declaring war on Poland, essentially, by declaring themselves anti-coalition, joining the Turkish side of things. And it's kind of weird because we have the 2 revolutionary countries. The other one is Spain, who's in a lot of trouble, but both on different sides of the conflict, which feels weird. It feels kind of like this nationalist revolutionary feeling should have coalesced. Well, maybe not, because in a sense, I think one could arguably say France obviously sparked the real French Revolution, but the country that was most transformed by the revolution, the major power that was most transformed by it, because you could definitely say things like the Batavian Republic, North Italy, etc., they were transformed completely, was Prussia. Prussia took a kind of mobilization to heart more quickly and more completely than almost anyone else. And this is where you get people like Grisnil, if I can pronounce that correctly. I don't know. Anyway, so it's not completely unreasonable that Spain is anti-Turkish, even though they were actually kind of the heart of the revolution in a way. But are they fighting it? Yeah. So I don't know. They were weird. Both entered weirdly. But both became centers of the revolutionary ideology, and both succumbed to it, essentially, thinking that it would be more advantageous than the religion that they had to have. So Spain had an ideology, a religion that was infectious in Counter-Reformation. But that infectuosity, is that a word? We like making things up here. That infectuosity, if we wish to coin the new term, was dampened. This is the period of the revolutions of nationalism. This is no longer the periods of the great religious waves. So there's going to be a vibrancy towards the religion expanding, towards the revolutionary ideology expanding, where there's not going to be any more for the Counter-Reformation expanding. At least that's my theory. So it kind of made sense to fall into line with that. And that was through an event card. It cost less than usual in terms of penalties, I think. So the British made that choice. Now, maybe it was a bad choice because they're facing a larger Spanish army, but they have designs on the Spanish Netherlands and also on the New World, which, if all things were told correctly and we were playing the old EU, they'd have a shot at. I'm not so sure they do here, because the way that peace works here, a lot of it has to do with, did you wipe out the enemy's army? If you didn't, you're not going to be able to enforce any kind of peace on them. It might come down to a negotiated peace, which feels more like the old EU, which was, hey, here's your peace conditions. Are you willing to take them or not? I actually like the way this works better in some ways. But the penalty is relatively low for staying at war. At least it feels it. The penalty for staying at war in the old EU wasn't very high either, though. So it's just, I don't think this is a war that England would really have much of a chance in either case, but at least they would be able to wipe out, perhaps, the Spanish army that's up there and put themselves in a position where Spain couldn't lose anything automatically, or couldn't win back the territory very easily. But that's not the case here. Here it looks very likely that the English are just going to be capturing towns. Now, that has additional costs. Spain is closer to winning the game than England is. Maybe they will come to some sort of negotiation and give England something out of it. I don't know what. There's some danger, though, because Portugal's a vassal of England, and there's a big Spanish army there, too. Austria gets to evade the war completely because, oh no, we're in a different time frame. We've passed already. No one can do anything to us and we can't be forced to fight, which feels just like so gamey and so bullshit to me. But like a lot of things, it's like really hard to understand what these mechanisms mean. You know, it almost feels like Austria has made their decisions and has used up the entire 15, 20 years of a turn, and now nobody can contravene those decisions or change them. So they're like excluded from the events that affect the world, to some extent at least. Like, it just, I don't know. It's just so hard for me to get a grasp on some of the stuff that this game system does. Now, it might be necessary for some of these kind of compromises which just tear, my very understanding of the fabric of existence of the world that we're looking at when you start playing with time and space, and I think this game does both, to an extent that, like, I just feel like I'm not playing anything that corresponds to any reality that I can understand. I'm playing in almost a universe where the manifold is completely different from, whatever we see. So anyway, that's what triggered why we're in a third video here for this. And we took enough time probably to qualify. I'm looking at this, I see 15 minutes already on this one. Probably to qualify somebody else's video, just telling you what the fuck happened in the last overlong video. If I recall correctly, I had only one cube on the Turks when I took their last turn. They should have spent that. I built armies. I didn't do anything else. I'm kind of down to nothing then, which means, I've taken my event. I got to pass. France is in kind of a confusing situation. Everybody's in a confusing situation. I don't have much, right? I have 2 cubes. I have an artillery. I could use a cube to sail over to here and then begin conquering that. Or I could use a cube to sail to here and take Salerno, which would be actually taking a territory from the Turks, which might be better than, taking 2 territories. Both are revolutionary. It's just hard to tell what the hell is worthwhile. Alternatively, my plans had been to advance into here, which I can also do, but this is harder. So let's see. No, I can do this. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend a cube for a naval action, sail this ship here. Now, naval actions allow an unlimited transit of connected naval areas. So now I move this one. Well, no. I declare war on Mali. Not on Mali, right? Yeah, on Mali. I want to take this. The English are my opponent here, which is the danger, but I declare war on Mali. Let's put that there. And I spent a cube for that. For my action, I take a naval action, but actually I have to fight a battle here, so actually I can't take a naval action. Never mind. I have 2 ships. Mali has 2 ships, I think. I have to look this up because I'm not sure. So here's the thing. We're talking 17th century frigates here having their first encounter with whatever kind of coastal shipping Mali might have. And that might be galleys or something along that line, but it really shouldn't be too potent. So my feeling is that there shouldn't be, I shouldn't be facing an equivalent navy. The problem with that, well, if you look at like China, granted, their navy was almost non-existent by this time. So yeah, China, Japan, their navies were relatively limited. India, but some of the areas here had more significant shipping to face things out. Now, clearly, it all depends on what you want to, say. Hey, what's the technology level of these things? The old EU tracked that. Every country on the board had a tech level for both land and naval capabilities. And that tech level would increase by whatever was, whatever the lead tech was doing. So I'd have some kind of equivalency. But there are no ideas that give naval capabilities. there are cards and admirals and stuff like that. But if this is treated the same as, I don't know, say Denmark, which looks like a pretty damn powerful nation, to tell you the truth. Of course, Denmark will have more ships. But if it's treated the same as Denmark, we're looking at a kind of ridiculous, let's say it's not Denmark. Let's say it's the Knights, you know, whatever they are, because they're gone. Rhodes is gone, and Malta doesn't go over to them. There's no treatment of them. I guess it could be, you know, just part of the Aragon, the only piece of Aragon that was left or something like that. Might be some kind of thing. But it was actually handed over by the Spaniards. The Spanish crown gave Malta to the Knights. So, you know, again, well handled in the original, probably in all the versions of the computer game, not well handled here. It remains some sort of weird Spanish vassal, which might be applicable, but had Spain actually incorporated Aragon properly, they'd own it, which they did, and then it would never go away. Yeah, what? I don't know. But yeah, and Spain and France are not at war, so that's okay. So yeah, I gotta figure out if there's any restriction on the naval battles. Now, somewhere, not under naval battles, somewhere it tells me. How about NPR units? NPR. These are used to defending our 36. So I'll look on page 36 if I see anything. But I don't think there's anything about rest of the world here. No, here we go. When calculating the MC or NC, double the tax value. Ooh, that's a problem. I'm actually going to need a cube to build an army, too. But what that means is I'm facing 4 ships, not 2. That's not it, but that would be 3 or more units, so I'd get an admiral possibility. It's only land units, right? If they're only NPR and they have a total of 3+4, if the card has an advisor, if the card has a leader, general or admiral. Yeah, okay. There are, however, some ports that are considered inactive. Huh. So that's a possibility. But I don't remember how that's covered. Is it that grayish color? Is that different from this? Yeah, so I think they actually don't have ports. Does that make sense? It would be almost everything. Or is there a difference between this and this? I can't tell. I honestly can't tell. The coloration, I mean, like, I can see there's a difference between that and this. So this would be inactive, I would say. Well, I don't know. That looks different from this. I can't fucking tell. Okay, so let's look for inactive ports or something. Continents, okay, coastal provinces have that also have ports on the distant continents, but a number of these are grayed out and designated as inactive ports, 20. Let's look at 20 and see what we're looking at. We're looking at something on the side of India. That's probably Goa or Gujarat. Which one's inactive, which one's not? I mean, I definitely don't think Mali should have a fleet. Okay, let's say that's inactive, which means it doesn't become... So like Gold Coast here has a navy at this point because of the Danes. But I believe what that means there's no fight. I believe what that means is I do have to build up a military here. I'm only going to be able to transfer 3 units. I only really need an infantry units because I have an artillery and that I just need 1. So I'll spend this for 1. And part of it, this is the graphics. I find it very difficult to distinguish. I've never really been able to. I look, and I mean, I know there was a navy in Japan, right? In this era, or at times in this era. I also know that there were navies in some of these, like in Hormuz or whatever. And I'm not seeing any distinguishment between these, although maybe I'm seeing a distinguishment between these, but then, I don't know, my eyes just can't make the color differentials. So I'm just saying there's no fleet there. It seems really unlikely that Mali would have a fleet that would challenge European fleets at any era. But I don't know. Okay. So I guess that's the French. I'm not going downstairs, but I need a pause in my brain at least. I'm having trouble figuring out what the fuck I was doing with Spain. Because again, I get to do one little tiny thing each time, you know? It's like the CDGs, it's like Euros. I don't get to like plan out what I'm doing and do it. And even with a relatively short cycle of being away, I don't remember exactly what I wanted to do. In fact, I may not know what I wanted to do. Because the question is, did I want to go invade Portugal? Or did I want to start picking off towns with my new army? Now that's my gun army, that's this one. Or do I want to clear up unrest? I do have an unrest, 2 unrests, and if I don't clear those up, well, if I conduct sieges, I'll want to clear up more unrest. So I've got a lot of issues here. Like, these are worth victory points, but this may be my only chance to take Portugal. So, fuck it. Like the English, let's march in. Let's conquer what we can. I have 1 cannon, 3 other units. I think I'm well set up for this. And taking the Portuguese out will be useful. And this is a vassal. If it was a minor state that was involved in the war, there would have been a fight with the French fleet, but there's not. Okay, let's push forward and see what the English do. And I just, again, like many times in this game, I feel like I'm blundering around, not the fuck sure what I'm doing. Most games, by this time in the game, and yeah, there's been a week of hell for me that, you know, disrupted things. But by most games, I do start to feel like I understand what's happening. What don't I? Well, some Euros, some really, really weirdly abstract games. I know that Cataclysm is very abstract, but I managed to kind of get a view of what was going on by the end of it. I feel like I struggled more with Axis Empires, and I really do like Axis Empires in some ways, but I also haven't been able to force myself to play it again. Now, some of that was, I was expecting there to be an expansion set, and instead, apparently, like, they decided to release a whole new version of both games. Yeah, I'm not going to pay another $250 or whatever the fuck it comes to now to be able to play Total or Krieg, you know? I don't know. I may just go back to the original. At least the rules to that were effective. Anyway, I got to get a pipe and try to push my way through this shit. You know, I mean, it sucks because I do, like, there's things I really like here, and there's things I hate so much. For the English, I have a few choices here. If I want to land here and fight this Spanish army, maybe I do. I need to move this ship over to here. And that would give me the capability to transfer my army over to the Netherlands, I think it's called. The Spanish army there, though, is 4. I am 6, and I might get repulsed. Over here, I could land here by picking this as my location and move 2 ships in. I kind of think I need that to connect me to here. So that's kind of maybe sort of important. I could bring more ships in. I'm not really worried about the Spaniards, though. They don't seem to have a navy to face me with. I also have this big ship, which I could bring into the English Channel as well, which might be the most potent option. And then just start sieging things. Unfortunately, sieging things doesn't really do much, but it does put additional victory point pressures on the Spaniards if they don't accede to some sort of demands. And I don't think I'm going to be able to get 2-to-1 odds on the Spaniards. In fact, I kind of think that they can get 2-to-1 odds on me. Now, what if I were to wipe this out? Can I do that? I don't know. There are 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 armies. I'm at 6. So they don't even have 2-to-1 yet on me. Okay. I think we can live with this then. We're going to do a naval action and move this and this. Those ships should be repaired now. Do I want to move this one? It's kind of doing something useful, maybe. I don't know. It's so hard to tell. Pop those both in the same fleet. That gives me more maneuverability, I think. I can always pop them out if I need trade or something. And then I ship my army, boom, 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 down to here. Unless the Spaniards have some sort of intercept card, which are pretty fucking rare. They have a forced march. That doesn't do it. I have to wait. But it's really not that big a deal. This turn the Poles fucked up. Turkey's passed now. I'm going to move. I don't have a forced march, I assume. And I'm going to start taking things from the Turks, I guess. With the idea that, you know, hey, I will have leverage on them. They will be losing victory points faster than I will for an ongoing war. So, you know, they may be forced into a peace. That spins us all the way around. I really made a mistake by attacking in Bohemia. I reduced the forces there, but, you know, they weren't really doing me any harm. And I didn't get rid of these. These are actually dangerous to me. They could move in there. They're not going to take anything yet. So that's that. But yeah, I you know, with the excitement of what's going on and everything, you'd think I'd want to keep playing, but I really don't. My brain is feeling fuzzy and everything. Okay, so we hit France again, and got my last cube. I've got an event to play. I don't want to do it quite yet. I'm going to drop this, and where's my army? I only have 3 things for my army. I can sail to here. And that gets me all the way around to my war against Mali. Now, I'm facing double size. So that's a 4-point unit that I'm facing there. Again, I can't spend a cube to put a general in play. So I have to rely on, and this would be so illegal in the original EU, I send my king off to Africa. Yeah. That game represented with the historical leaders, etc., and the royal leaders when they show up. Each leader had a representation of where they were allowed to function in the world. Now, for the most part, I don't know how big a deal that is. Certainly by this point in the game, you would be able, presumably, it feels funny to not be able to send one of your best generals. So, if you think about like the American Revolution, the British were sending some rather highly ranked officers to command things. Guys like Howe. And, maybe not their highest rank, but their highest rank wouldn't have a counter in the game because he didn't do anything, right? It was the key war for that period. But you still wouldn't be able to send your king there, right? The kings were limited to Europe for the most part. Well, entirely. Anyhow, so we sail into there. This is what we plan to do. It's not great. Mali has 4 people, so they have a chance of a ruler, which they get. Now, on my advantage as the French, I do have some military capabilities. I still have tercios, but I don't think it counts, does it? Nope, nobody took line infantry yet, or line infantry doesn't exist yet. So tercios still works, and I have my cannons, which still work. No military drill, which would be helpful. So we look over, and my king gets 2 extra white dice. So I get 5 dice, infantry and artillery can hit. There's 4 enemies. I can't hit 4 times. But I only hit once. Okay, this is not good. And then my enemy is all infantry, and they hit 4-5 times, kill the king. That wipes out the French army. It was a complete failure. Not good. Not good at all. So King Robert is gone. And I could immediately replace him. I'm not sure there's any reason to. Which is kind of disturbing. It feels like to maintain succession, you ought to automatically have to put somebody down there, but I can have an interregnum. It doesn't hurt me until the end of the turn. So I can make my choices later. This is also gone. And that was a massive defeat at Mali. And that means that the French are going to have to undergo a white peace there, which sucks. We're going to have trouble finding, there's just so many wars going on at once. I would say, if you're looking at, the early conquistadors in the original EU, much as, historically, they fucking kicked ass, right? I mean, Albuquerque even for the Portuguese, who isn't really a conquistador, but obviously Cortez, Pizarro, they just, were able to wipe out empires basically with small forces. And in the game, it's iffier than that. First of all, you can't send some little detachment off to do it. You can't take Mexico City down with a detachment. You conceivably could, I guess. But you really can't siege the city with it, which means you'd have to do an assault, and the chances of that are slim to none. So you have to send an actual army, and that causes some issues, and there's definite problems with that. But once you send that army, you have a fairly good chance. And whenever you're facing, these native forces, with those original medieval forces, or Renaissance era, they're not great. Their odds are not perfect. But if you are facing native forces with Age of Reason, You know, with any of these later technology groups, you usually have so much of an advantage that you can just bust through them really, really easily. Well, I don't know. Depends on the numbers. It really does. And I mean, you can think about things like, what is it, the Zulu Wars, where much, even later technology English had trouble against spears and shields. So I don't mind that they got wiped out here, but it is something of a difference in the game system. The fire combat, once you have muskets and the enemy doesn't. However, this is also abstracted. It's quite possible that there's gunpowder available in EU by this point, and that does actually make the out-of-world miners a little bit more potent and a little bit scarier. All right, we'll go on to the Spaniards. The difference, though, is I just can't get rid of this. The morale levels are still painfully low for these sort of rest of the world troops, and they might get hung up where they're barely in Renaissance or whatever. So they might not have much even in this era. They might be really, really in trouble facing the most modern armies of the world, which the Western European troops forces all had. It's possible that one nation in that system would be a little bit better than the rest of the Western European nations. But for the most part, all the Western European nations would just have such dominating firepower if they brought real force in. The question is, how much force did I bring? Well, less than the enemy, but if you're looking at it, in terms of what the spirit of the game's saying, there were 4 of these facing the French. The French had 3, so the French army was 3/4 the size of this native army. That should not even be an issue. I mean, that should be a complete wipeout. But maybe there's some abstraction going on there. Maybe this army is actually a lot bigger, and there could be really good arguments for that, right? Because the populations of some of these areas, you'd be getting the same kind of value in Siam, which certainly could put out quite a large army. I think Spain wants to be able to beat the English, and I think the best way of doing that is to shift this over here. Yep, my king. How about that? Great. Unless I absolutely want to put a couple cav dice, I don't know. I got 3 cav dice there, no biggie. And remember, I can replace kings for free. So if I lose my king, it's no big deal, and I can shift these around pretty easily. And I'm going to spend my cube to march down into these stupid stand-up pieces into there. I really not a big fan of some of the components. I'm never a big fan of plastic in my games. Okay, now the English have their army here with their general. They're going to get 2 extra. I got nothing special here. We look down here. The English still have tercios. The Spanish have tercios. They're both going to hit on more. Spaniard has military drill. Revolutionary regime. I don't think that has any effect. Okay. Oh, trying to remember. As the list of ideas gets bigger, it's harder to keep everything balanced on there. But I think the biggies are, both have cannons, both have tercios. The Spaniards have the military drill, which is the die reduction. So the Spanish are attacking. I need some of these. Army size, I'm looking at 6 to 4. So the Spaniards have a smaller army. This is not great odds, but I hurt the English king. I get 5 hits plus a cannon, 6 hits on the English. I wipe out the English army, and I do damage to killing their king. Okay. These are happening simultaneously, but because I'm so far apart, and there goes William III finally, who came in with a wound. Is the guy who had an assassination attempt on him? I mean, obviously, William of Orange had multiple assassination attempts on him, but I'm trying to remember if William III was the one with the bad injury. Okay. For William, he will be getting 5 dice minus 1. Now, I had 2 artillery with me. I moved them out. Was I able to do that much damage? No. There's two units left, so actually the English are not wiped out. There should be 2 artillery in the English army. And that is the gun army. Doesn't really matter. We only have 1, but okay. So I rolled these dice, and I got 3 hits on the Spaniards. The Spanish, I'll take that in infantry, I guess, just because artillery is worth more. No death on their side. William, I can put away now. He's just gone. And now the English could retreat. I think they'd have to go overseas, and I'm not sure they're even allowed to. Fuck. Let's look at the retreat rules. They lose 1 additional units. Units which disembark from ships. The defender can retreat to any adjacent area that does not contain enemy units. If there is no such area, they may not retreat. I don't believe they can retreat by sea. Although I'm not sure, because adjacency includes sea, like under certain conditions. So, I don't know. Let's see if adjacency is defined here. Adjacency. They're adjacent if all areas share a border. It's also considered adjacent. Actually, I think I'm completely adjacent, yeah. So, the only restriction might be if there were Spanish ships in the way, and there's certainly English ships there. So I could retreat and be down to 1 artillery. I don't want to do that. The reason is the Spaniards are actually a weaker force still. We could spend a cube to put this naval traditions in play and give myself 2 extra cannon. Now, I think the Spanish had to make their decision to retreat before that decision was made. Am I allowed to do this, actually? Appoint leader. No. Wait, maybe not. No, we go back to step 2. So yeah, I can't put a new leader in play. Let me get that cube back. I thought I could appoint a new leader in the midst of the battle, but I cannot. Now the Spaniards still have a leader, which will help them a little. I don't think there was anything here I wanted to play, which means, and nobody has any face-up cards, we go to another round of combat. So the Spanish have their 6 dice again. All we can do is 1 hit. And we need cannons to do it, so we get nothing. The English only get 2 dice, but they can hit twice, and all they have are cannons. Okay. Well, this is going to be fun for a while. Neither side wants to retreat because both have a shot. They both have their own advantages, right? The Spanish have more dice. And if the English win and keep both their units, they can capture a lot of territory off of a couple of cubes. Nope. Still have to watch out for those. Well, okay, we killed a Spaniard. That ends the Spanish army. There goes the king. This comes off. This was during the Spanish turn, so the English do not get a cube for the attack, for the victory. Which, I don't know. I'm really, because again, I don't know what cubes mean. It seems like momentum could swing due to such a thing, but in a way it already has, because the Spanish have spent a cube to make this attack. So they're one cube lower proportionally, but if they continued in successes, they would keep getting their cube back, right? I don't know. Not sure how I want to consider that. On to the English, and, well, we're where we want to be. We will spend 1 or 2 cubes is the question. Good choice. So continental presence is the interesting thing here. Vassalize 4 provinces: Netherlands, Flanders, and Wallonia, or Lower Saxony. This is Lower Saxony. I got nothing. If I spend 2 cubes here, I can't gain 2 more cubes, but I don't fucking know. I'm going to only spend 1 cube. I'm not going to get much out of this, no matter how it plays out. And that extra cube I can use to reduce unrest over there. So we'll take the 2 port cities, and that's it. And now we save cubes for the unrest situation. Austria's paused or passed. Something that starts with a P. Got to think about Poland. It may just be familiarity in a certain sort of way with the way the military system kind of works. It feels, you know, kind of right in some ways. I know, I have my big disagreements with, hey, wars seem to not really do much and be very far and everything. But on the other hand, they are kind of fun to play out. They do feel kind of like, I don't know, you know, your Here I Stand or your Axis and Allies. Just systems that use dice in this sort of way, I kind of like. They're easy to know. I don't have to go do lookups on tables and stuff. There's something pleasing about that. And you know, I'm often a big detractor of buckets of dice. In fact, I was complaining about it because it seems inelegant to me, right? It seems like, and not that this is buckets of dice. This is a dice matching types. It feels more like Command and Colors, right? Where you're rolling dice, and if you get the right types, you do hits. But there's something just very intuitive in terms of processing it, right? I don't have to go do lookups and charts and everything. And I do understand that view of it. The inelegance argument, and I made this on BGG many times, but not too long ago, within the range of when I've been playing this, is that, look, when you're rolling lots and lots of dice, you may be getting something that seems intuitively correct, but it kind of sucks when you have to get fistfuls of dice. I kind of like this system because, in general, although, you know, if you've got leaders and whatnot and bonuses, you might have more dice than fit comfortably in the hand, but that's more a factor of how big these dice are. If they were, you know, your little Avalon Hill-sized dice, they wouldn't be a problem at all. Although with the symbols on them, they might be hard to read if they were small. So, yeah, take it either way. But, you don't have to roll. You're not rolling like one die per unit. It's not like playing Titan, where you have to grab, you know, oh look, 18 dice for my serpent. You know, that gets me to the ridiculous side of buckets of dice, and that's what I don't like about buckets of dice. The Axis and Allies feel where, you know, I've got tons and tons of units, and I've got to roll one die for each unit. Even when I'm doing them in fistfuls, it just feels horrible. So I don't mind buckets of dice or a system like this that uses this kind of matching system in a lot of ways. In terms of like just the play and dealing with it. It's when buckets of dice gets to be too large. And I guess that's where I come up with my, well, it's inelegant. So what I don't want to see is a game like OCS or something like that, where, you know, we're looking at factors in the 50s or 60s. Whatever you do with buckets of dice is just going to be obnoxious when you're looking at that kind of balancing. And it makes absolute sense to me to move away from buckets of dice if you're rolling more than like 5 or 6 dice at a time. Feel like Here I Stand works fine. You're not rolling too many dice. With something this abstract, it works fine again. And it feels comfortable to me in the sense that it's similar to other wargame-ish type things. What I don't like about this, the thing, you know, is this idea that, like, whatever I'm doing, this little fight here, it might be covering a whole bunch more than what it appears to. I don't mind when it's a whole bunch more in that area. I don't mind that there's lots of maneuver and everything. You know, again, these rounds are 15 years. I may only get a couple military actions during those 15 years. Now, of course, that's not 15 years of military action. But, you know, like, it's a whole season's campaigning at least every time that we're rolling dice in a battle, right? It's not, oh, this is one pitched major battle. Anyway. And that's the same thing. You know, the original EU and the Empires in Arms model that it starts from feels more like you're fighting a single key battle. You know, you're fighting your Austerlitz battle or whatever when you're rolling the dice. But the reality is, once again, maybe you're not playing, well, in EU you might well be playing at least a season's worth of campaigning each time you're rolling battle dice. But in Empires in Arms, it's not the case. But you may be playing several weeks worth of campaigning within an area when you're rolling dice for a battle. And that, yeah, there's probably, in Empires in Arms, there's probably one key battle in that time. But, you know, there's cases where there's multiple key battles within that kind of time span. There's cases where there's multiple battles on the same fucking day in close proximity to each other. So, you know, this idea, especially in Empires in Arms, where you're picking these chits, oh, what's my general tactic for this battle? Wow, that's bullshit. You know, I mean, the general tactics should be more at an operational level, I think, and it's really hard to view defend in place is okay, but it's hard to view bombard, you know, or something like that. I don't remember if that's one of them. I know that's in War and Peace and 1776, which it inherited from, I guess. I don't even know if that has bombard in it. I know War and Peace does. Since I already moved my forces, instead of trying to cure that unrest up there, and I have my tolerance, so maybe it'll be okay. Although this army is somewhat risky, it won't do anything right away. Poland moves into the capital area of the Turks. Seizing their capital gives me certain advantages. I think that's a worse situation than anything else. So I will probably be doing that. I have artillery. I have 2 artillery. I only have 1 cube, but I can take their capital city. Or I could take 2 other cities. And it just gives me a little bit more flexibility if I want to do that. Now, taking their capital doesn't affect the victory, but it may affect what I can do. Not really. Oh, this is all provinces in the capital area. Yeah, so, you know, I'm not going to be able to force conversion on them or anything like that, but I may be able to do something nasty to them. We put British cubes down for those towns, but we did not put Spanish cubes. I don't think. No, I got cubes in those. I also should have a cube in that, which I do not. Okay. And that wraps us around for this round. I'm going to go, I don't know, deal with one of my addictions. I mean, raid's the big one, but I think I'm kind of played out on it for the day. So now I pursue one of the other things, which would eat up almost as much time as raid does every day, but I wouldn't feel the same compulsion to play. Like, before I started playing raid, while I wasn't working, I was watching videos or, fucking around with other games or whatever. But it wasn't on this sort of timed pulse where I felt like I had to do X, Y, and Z each day. I could walk away from it. And that's the horrible thing. The horrible thing is that this is scheduled, it's every day, and also that, and that I'm wasting resources if I don't do it. Now you could say, well, geez man, if you play, whatever game you're playing, board game even, you're wasting resources by not spending your time on it. But I can't look at, I can't look at my life as finite, even though obviously it would be. It feels like it's just an infinite resource that I have, the time, overall. It's the fact that, like, I'm getting these resources every day at certain times, and I have to do these things. And I don't know. It just psychologically, it creates an addictive fashion to me. Other gacha games have done that, but none of them gave as much. Raid just fucking gives me so goddamn much that, and that was very, very appealing for the first couple of weeks. It was like, I can play a lot of this. And I was actually running out and not being able to do much, but now more and more shit's happening, and it eats up all of my time. Well, I was able to reverse my schedule a little bit, in the sense that now I'm getting up around 6 p.m., which is getting closer to where I was before things got really fucked up from the sickness, but it's not what I want, right? I want to get up, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2. That sounds right to me. I don't understand. Like, I want to be able to have some of the daylight, but it's problematic in many ways. And even 1 or 2, I won't be able to get outside and enjoy life and whatever. Anyhow, Turks are on pass, so we pull them over. French are out. They have nothing they can do, as far as I can tell. Which means it's past time for them, and I don't have anything I can do except I pick a new ruler to put in place. Wrong I am. They have not yet picked their event. So I have to pick an event. So my choices are the Succession War, which we'd get 2 military. I think we've already checked. We didn't have any royal marriages we could screw with here. These can't be here. Oh, wrong one. Okay. The marriage can be there, the alliance cannot. Okay. I'm just looking to make sure. I've got a royal marriage here I could screw with. So I could conceivably go to war with Aragon. That could get me additional troops that I could ship into here instead. I didn't realize I had a marriage next to me. That would also fuck around with Spain even more. And, well, we're not allied with Spain, so we could conceivably end up in a war with Spain, not over a marriage, but Spain could also enter into that war. looking to see if there's anywhere else adjacent to me that there's a marriage, because the Dutch could have been one. I don't see one. But what about conscription? We just lost our army. Either lose 1 or pay 3 to research conscription. I think I can lose 1 even though there will be no actual cost to it. So I will succeed in this. If you have revolutionary, I do not. I would get some additional bonuses. I can't decline it. I could control a revolutionary expansion, and there would be an attrition check. So this is the big question. Does France want to go to war with Aragon, or do they want this idea? Now this idea is mass conscription. Sounds military to me. Yep. We'd get a couple of victory points off that, which is probably as good as we'd get off Aragon at best. Refresh 6 exhausted armies per bloop spent to replenish manpower. You cannot research serfdom. I'd refresh all. I'd gain 2 military. You know, I want this. This is better. It allows me to keep pursuing the war that I have. I'll be getting more troops. I'll be getting cubes. I won't be getting money, but that's okay. Well, actually, I get a few bucks. So yeah, we'll take military conscription. We get the $4 that's on it. Let me remember to put, well, it actually doesn't matter. This is going to fire off. Okay. So each player has to choose. Levy en masse, either lose, so I choose to lose 1, which has no cost for me, because it's not pay, and I research the mass conscription, sorry. Serfdom never came out. Odd that serfdom would be a military idea. It really doesn't. It really doesn't feel military. It feels admin. Okay. If you have revolutionary, you get these other things, but instead I'm going to be getting this. That gives me 2 points. Other people are going to be able to join in. Instant effect, refresh all and gain 2 military. There comes that big army. I get 2 cubes, that'll extend the war. I gotta move the event, I know, but I'll forget if I don't. And I don't get any of this. That brings me to Spain. Now Spain has a more painful choice here. They are revolutionary. They'll gain more from taking this. Either lose 1 stability or pay 3 military. I can't afford, I could afford to pay 3 military because I'm gonna get 2 back. So it's 1 military cube or a stability. Now that last stability takes a cube away next turn. I don't know. What would 5 cubes do for me? England is winning the war right now, and they can take this because the cube total, they'll lose 2 cubes, but they'll gain 2 cubes. Whew. Gosh. I feel like there's too much to gain to not do conscription, including the victory points. So we get 2, France gets 1. How do we want to pay this? 3 military seems like a higher cost overall. So I'm going to take this stability loss. I refresh all my armies. I gain 2 military cubes. And I lose serfdom if I have it. I lose, oh, fuck. Okay, so this is more painful to me, but I have a revolutionary regime, I think, unless that's an idea. So I am a revolutionary regime. I'm not sure I have a revolutionary regime. Is that out? Yes, I do have it. So I actually do not pay the additional cost. This is going to be why it's more painful for the Brits. Okay, awesome. Where was this? Refresh all, gain this, lose another unless you have revolutionary. Okay. And then over here, I get to place a revolution and a claim in an area adjacent by land to my realm. Well, I have claims to most of the areas that are adjacent to my realm. An exception being up here, I could get a claim to Italy, to central Italy. Do I care about that? I have Italian ambitions still. Owner vassalized 5 or more provinces in Naples, Sicily, Corsica, and Sardinia. Doesn't help me. Of course, my realm itself is adjacent to my realm, so I could do that. That's interesting. I think maybe the best choice is to take this and put this here. That doesn't really increase the spread capability, but that's okay. Okay. That makes it England's choice. Now, England has the more painful option, except we're already all the way down. What's the cost here? So I would gain 2 before I would lose the 1, which means I would lose double. However, I don't have 3 admins, so I cannot choose to decline the reform. I must take the reform. So I have to lose 1 or pay 3 military. I can't pay 3 military, so I lose 1. Let's take these over here. You know, this is why these videos take so long, is that I have to if we have to add another layer, I don't know what it's going to be, because you know, we've got excess 1s bouncing off all over the place. I could make it a little easier by pushing this up here, perhaps. I don't know. Okay, so I have to lose 2 cubes to take this. I end up researching mass conscription. That gets me 2. France 1, Spain 1. Hey, everybody's getting victory points here. And then this is triggered. I refresh all my military. I gain 2 cubes, but then I lose a stability. Unless I have revolutionary regime, which I do not. Only Turkey and Spain have it. So I lose those cubes again. I'm still stuck at 0 cubes, which is not good, but I was forced into this, and I don't get any of the additional bonuses. This is, you know, to me, this is actually the Prussia situation. They were forced into a mass conscription without changing their regime to truly revolutionary. Okay, Austria's next choice. Also, I do not have 3 admin. So I cannot choose this. So I'm forced into levy en masse. So I lose a stability or pay 3 military. Stability costs me less. Let's take one of each cube. I research mass conscription. Nobody else gets anything off this. Austria gets 2. Now we jump back to the mass conscription. I refresh all my troops. I gain 2 military. However, I lose a stability, so I'm just going to burn those 2 military there. I'm already passed, so there's nothing that really happens here. That puts me to Poland, also unable to decline the reform. Levy en masse. I must lose a stability. Yeah. There goes the fat man, right? Just burn it away. Whatever there is for next turn. Research mass conscription. Gives Poland 2. Yeah, this is all like equivalent. I refresh everything. Yeah. Somehow, these little wooden pieces, I mean, there's something really lovely about nice pieces and everything, but on the other hand, these sometimes end up screwing stuff up. A big stack of counters would be so much easier to slide over. I gain 2 military, but then I lose a stability which eats those 2 military. All fine. I already got the points there. We go to the last player, which is Turkey. Turkey's in the French position. Unfortunately, I was forced to pass, so I lose a stability. I research the mass conscription and get my 2 points. This feels, I don't know, the requirement, the fact that you kind of have to go mass conscription feels a little weird. But not really. If you think about the Napoleonic Wars, which I think is what's going on right now, strangely enough, during the 7 Years' War era, it just doesn't feel like it aligns properly. And I've checked this before, right? 454. Right? I'm just making sure 454 is over here. Like it's like the Napoleonic Wars is happening in this first deck, or first half of the deck, when I think it should be happening in the second half. Now, you could make an argument it can happen in the first half, but then the Napoleonic Wars should be up, not the 7 Years' War, right? Really, really disturbing. Okay, where are we here? We did the research. Did we take the points? I assume so. If we have revolutionary regime, okay, but first I have to trigger the effects of this, right? Refresh all military and gain 2 cubes, and I do not have to pay a price for this. God damn it. I'll have to clean this mess up. Again, counters. And, you know, it's because I have one hand, right? But still. Did I do everything there? I think so. Did I get 2 cubes? Yeah, I should get 2 cubes for this. And now I get a revolution and a claim to an area adjacent to my realm. I have claims to so much stuff. My main opponents are Austria and, okay, I have somehow lost my claim to this. You know what? I think it's because I don't have enough claims. So I could dispose of a claim. Where would I want to get rid of a claim? This claim isn't doing... Oh, that's a core. That's not a claim. I don't know. I don't know that Sicily is that important to me. Is there a mission I haven't gotten? Control of the Black Sea, control of the Danube. I don't think Sicily matters to me. I am willing to give up my claim to Sicily, I think. So I don't see one anywhere else I want to give up. To put one where? Well, this is the big question. Because I kind of have to do this, right? Right? Place A, boop to, and gain A. I don't know if I have to. So I could go back into the Adriatic. Danube is what I really want. Like the Hungarian plains and Royal Hungary, but I already have claims to those. So yeah, let's put our claim back in the Adriatic. I don't really need it because I've got excuses for wars with Austria. But what's kind of nice here is I've created another area that is revolutionary. And since I'm revolutionary realm, that's good. That gets me to the end of this. How long did this take? 20 minutes. I've done one thing in 20 minutes. And I'm not even done because I have secondary effects. These are controlled by the French. The first one is attrition. All PRs that are at war, except for me, must remove a land unit as a casualty for every 4 deployed. And we'll take a look, and obviously France has no land units deployed, so they're not really getting the benefit out of this. But I'm looking, and Spain has 7. That's going to cost them 1. England's lost most of their army, so they're okay. Poland is going to lose 1. Turkey's going to lose 1. Nothing terrible. I tried fiddling around with these Turkish things, and even with both hands, I mean, yes, I'm drinking coffee and I'm a little jittery and I'm a little excited and whatever, but it's just too much of a fucking pain. Like, I try to move some up, and I mean, you saw this when I was doing it one-handed. It's not that much better two-handed. It's mainly that you just have to really, really focus because you got to get these stupid little guys on their feet. I don't know. Fucking meeples and cubes. I'm playing a goddamn Euro here. Okay. Oh yeah, Turkey decided to lose an infantry instead of a cavalry. The reason being, I'm going to be using my artillery to capture whatever I capture. So that's fine there. And I'm not really expecting, Turkey's already passed. Yes, they have cubes, but they've passed. They can't come back in. So they're just, spreading their ass cheeks for Poland right now. Luckily, Poland was not revolutionary, so they weren't able to, gain anything out of it. So they're still only going to be able to capture 1 territory. Okay. So that gets us to the revolutionary, which is here. The symbol appears on age 4. It works the same way as spread of religious as described above, except you only place revolutionary tokens next to clusters of revolutions. They may also be placed in Orthodox or Muslim. I'm going to be allowed to do 4. If there are no more available revolution... Oh, man. Oh, man. Okay, this is problem. There's a limited amount of revolutionary areas, and they're supposed to cover in these. Oh, fuck. See, these work differently from the religious ones then, apparently. I gotta look that up. I gotta look that up because that's really disturbing. Because here's the thing. Those counters, on the back of those counters are these things. Which means it's actually possible that there are still revolutionary markers. Here's one. Now, it may also be possible that all of those are taken up. I think they're not at a limited commodity. Oh boy, I did not imagine that there would be this kind of dissonance going on here, right? Because religious markers can go, you can have as many as you like. They're unlimited. Unless I'm wrong. And I assume the revolutionary, since they work kind of like religion, would work exactly the same way. And the problematic thing here is, like the religious markers, they're double printed with other things that are in use. And there's other players who have these markers. So it is quite possible, that there's those markers in play, and I don't know, I was using them because the revolution was not going to happen until this age. And these troop increases got placed early. But now I'm going to be pushed into countermix issues that I don't have a solution for. And I just don't know what the fuck. I can make counters to replace things that are unlimited. But I am really unhappy that something that is back printed is of a limited number and that it works completely differently from things that it operates just like. Okay, this is ugly. Apparently religion, and they suggest that you use religious markers the way I was using them early on, which is, hey, if you're not the right religion for your nation, it's nice to highlight it that way. Okay, here's the thing. Unlimited tokens. Some tokens are unlimited, and should they run out, another way to indicate their meaning. These include ducats, war truce, occupied, +1, and tag chips. They include them. That could be worded a little better. I assume they are not just include, but they are limited to. I don't see anything about religion, which to me means that what I've been doing is completely wrong. These require religious markers, ones that cannot ever be moved, which leads me to believe that religion is supposed to be limited on the board, and God, I don't know what that even means. It's like, you probably... I really don't know. But I've been playing that all wrong. I am going to continue playing it wrong, and I am going to create additional religion markers. I had just assumed that this was not something that limited on the board. Now, I have to tell you, by limiting it on the board, you do prevent religion from being as major a factor. For example, I had this fear that the entire Christian world would become Protestant, right? That's not going to happen. Now, the game prevented it from happening anyhow. So that really wasn't an issue. And I feel like what is Protestant is different from the historical Protestant areas, but believable, and not that different. Like, imagine, so it's not an unreasonable thing to think of, you had all the Protestants that you had historically, which is, England, up here in the Norse areas, and quite a bit in Germany. Say half of German territories. Bohemia would be, which it is. Switzerland would be. You'd have this mix. It would probably be about the same as everything, and France went Protestant. And that's pushing the limit of the countermix. It really is. That pushed the limit of the countermix to the extent that I had to use these, and that I'm getting close Well, I've actually gone beyond close because I have this. Anyway, which I have exceeded the countermix. So someone would have had to pull, say, a Protestant mark. And this is a powerful capability that I find really weird. So when I made this counter reform, I would have been able to pull a Protestant marker and like fuck England or something like that by pulling that out. I really don't like that. I really don't like that. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep playing the way I have been because, again, I just... like the cubes, man. Oh, there's a limited number of these? Well, you can take... This feels so fucking Euro-ish. You can take one from somebody else and use it the way you want to use it. Oh, boy. What feels like to me is that, oh, well, we only want to produce so many counter, such a certain counter limitation. And, well, wouldn't it be a cool game effect to be able to just, like, I don't know, convert East Anglia back to Catholic by stripping their Protestant marker and, converting Granada? You can make hand-wavy arguments why it kind of works, but boy, does it piss me off, right? I mean, this is the kind of thing that, wow. And there are just so many of these in here. This is the problem. I enjoy the game. I like the mechanisms and how they interact in it in a lot of ways. But then when I start looking at what it means, I really need to change this game, right? Like some of it I did automatically, like with the religions. Some of it I need to do, like adding new player sets. Some of it I don't even have a clue how to do. Like trying to make maybe the cube, well, to some extent, yes. I could figure out a way to make the cube production a little higher, right? Give everybody an extra one of each cube each turn. Just +1, That might be enough to create enough fat to create what I want. The one that I really don't know how to deal with is how do you make the wars feel like the wars that they are? And I don't know if that can be done. But the wars would at least happen. They would just not happen where they historically happened. Like, the Napoleonic Wars or whatever might just be limited to right in here. The invasion of Russia just is abstracted away, which, wow. And, that kind of makes sense if the game was designed for just this board. But the fact that it has 2 boards, the fact that it has that extra space, yeah, I don't know. It's just going to be, it's like maybe the original design was based on this little tiny thing. And then it's a little bit more believable. But when you do add the extra board, it starts becoming a lot less acceptable to abstract away the invasion of Russia. A year and a half or whatever of operations flowing in and then back. Oh boy. And given that all of the Napoleonic Wars is going to happen in the course of really one round, right? That one round is happening, in the 1750s. That is a scenario issue, right? That's because the cards seem to be in the wrong place. And which cards? Maybe it's that the 7 Years' War should have happened in the deck earlier, Again, time, though, is just such... Like, the idea of splitting things up into 25-year periods or 20-year periods or whatever, that's not, not supported by the rules. Anyway, I have got to start pulling more wooden pieces to start using on the board for religion. So France got to control the spread. They put it in Sicily. They put it up here in Moldavia and Wallachia and Bulgaria. Just coming from different angles, right? Down here in southern Morocco, there are 4 maximum. obviously, if I treated them kind of like pirates under the privateering rules or whatever, where I could shift them around, he could do much more clever things, right? So I could strip revolutionary ideal from the Turks and the Spanish and really fuck with people in ways that feels unbelievable, right? Now, I don't know. Again, I can kind of see the game aspect of that as being like this incredible thing. The problem is, I wasn't thinking in those terms at all while I was playing. My assumption was these were like just little markers, like in Empires of the Middle Ages, right? Where it's just indicating something core and basic to the population, to the underlying population, not that, well, if you spread the revolution somewhere, it goes away somewhere else. Or if you spread Protestantism somewhere, it dies out somewhere else. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? Now, the revolution is directly proportional. With Protestantism, if you spread Protestantism and that's what you want to do, you could actually be getting rid of counter-reforms because they're on the other side, right? To get them. One thing I want to say, these little counters, these are from the Gallic coin game, Falling Sky or whatever. I have not pillaged my Falling Sky game to get them. What happened is, and I think I may have another bag of these, GMT would give excess stuff away at cons, and at Consim World they would bring just boxes of excess stuff. And they throw it out on a table and it's like, hey, take one or two things, you know, whatever you need. And I would go up there and there would be nothing, you know, that I terribly needed. The things that really went quickly were extra decks of cards because people's cards would wear out or whatever. I didn't tend to play my games that much. That I needed that. A little surprised because most of these people who are really worried about their cards maybe getting marked or something sleeve them anyhow. But anyhow, usually what was left for me was these things. And these are a hell of a lot more useful because I don't devote them to any particular game. I just have like this loose pile of stuff. Of little bits and pieces that I can use in any game, and you know they're serving a nice purpose here. Even though, okay, one of my technical complaints about this game was there weren't enough counters to handle the religion. Well, turns out I'm wrong. There were, but there is one complex aspect of this, which is these guys are of infinite number. So if you're using these guys, you can replace them. The other things are limited numbers. Now I'm wondering, you know, are these things, which are removal from the HRE, are they a limited number thing? I don't remember whether or not they were listed in the unlimited tokens. These include Ducats, Chartreuse, occupied tokens, +1, and tag chits. Okay, so this is interesting. If this is indeed the complete list, you can only take X number of provinces from the HRE. And let's see this. This is not listed here, which means that you can move them. So let's say somebody conquers Burgundy and you know, all 6 or 7 provinces or whatever that can be taken from the HRE are already gone. Well, you could take Bohemia and reincorporate it into the HRE by putting the marker on Burgundy. And this would actually not affect the emperor. That's the way that I read how this works. So again, you know, I mean, me making sort of what I consider to be, intuitive choices of where to, what to question in the rules and whatnot. Well, now that the religious one is limited by this rule, I'm left with okay, well, if that's the case, then what other things that make no sense would apply, right? And if this is a complete list, these include Ducat, war truce, occupied, +1 military, and tag chips. We could look through other kind of tokens. I'm not going to count armies. I'm not going to try to play things silly there. But it does feel like there are probably other things. Oh, here's one. Dynamic NPRs. I've been growing them. Nope, that's not allowed. Those are not in the unlimited quantity. So you would have the possibility of Denmark expanding over here, but it would have to give up territories up in the Sweden-Denmark. Boy, does that bug me, right? Like, and what's worse is that would be limited. You might be taking things from one NPR and giving them to another. Again, you can make hand-wavy arguments why that might make sense some of the times. But I feel like they're so weak anyhow, right? They just don't have the kind of power that I want them to have as dynamic. Like, I feel like these dynamic NPRs really should be players in a lot of cases. And they're not. And that's disturbing. I also feel like Russia, instead of cutting the Russia board off, it should have been made a dynamic NPR to begin with, or something. Because it should expand from its initial position, and that should be covered by the game mechanisms instead of other things. But anyway, there is another one of these that's in play that I would just not assume. It might be possible that an NPR is created and that it would sort of destroy another one. I don't know, because this is the thing. If an orange one, or if a pink one came out here of this flavor, it could cause the destruction of Persia. And they could be in this constant balance where, hey, if one's growing, the other one decreases or whatever. This is like the religion one. I can see where you can make arguments about it and whatnot. That, yeah, these things didn't just expand. Sometimes they collapse, and there's no mechanism in place for that. So the players are getting some capability to move things around like that. But it really weirds me out. And there's something in the game that I've already been doing where if you run out of certain counters, it allowed you to shift things that I did not like. But I absorbed, I internalized, and it didn't bother me too much. I'm not sure what it was. Some of the gamey shit, like, hey, if you're at your maximal alliances, now you have to create a new alliance, and that'll allow you to destroy an old alliance. And again, I can make hand-wavy arguments why that would happen, but the fact that, like, you have to do that, and that frees you up and makes you able to declare war on people otherwise and stuff, it just feels so weird and gamey and arcane when it comes down to it. All right. Well, what has this been, like an hour? Almost all on video? And I came up here expecting to whip through doing a pretty quick turn like I've been doing. And I'm still not done. Great. We got a whole pile more of these. Fantastic. All righty. Well, we'll look at the secondary effects. These are all automatically handled. I got to go downstairs and check. I've got this really long battle in raid going. I went down last time, and I hadn't failed at the battle, but it put it on pause automatically because it's like, oh, you're at like 1,000 turns out of 1,500 or 1,200 turns out of 1,500, and you're getting close to the limit. And I don't know what the fuck, why this pause is in there. It's happened before, it really pisses me off. I still hear fighting down there, but basically, if I get to a certain point, I can't win it anymore. And that, if it gets to that pause, that's the case. It may just be that I can't win this with the set of champions I have in there. The thing is, with the raid thing, I was beating, it's one of these bosses. I had a configuration that could beat it. That was expensive and time consuming, and I guess I swapped a champion out, I don't know, because I want to gain experience with champions who aren't as good, and it's getting to a point, and now it just seems to be pathologically ending up in this, I only have one character left and the boss can't kill me, and that character is not strong enough to kill everything on its own. So he's just like stuck there with like the boss and a minion fighting for 1,500 rounds, like an hour or whatever. And yeah, the raid takes a lot of time. All right, we're at the P, which I know throws this into play. It reveals the next one, which means the next one is cheap. Napoleonic Wars, Castile, Seine, I guess Netherlands, Brandenburg, Austria, Central Italy, Mazovia and Małopolska, Moscow and Riga, and Egypt. PRs only score prestige for areas where they had no core provinces at the start of the game. Okay. PRs score 5 if they occupy the capital of an opponent. Okay. Sure. We'll see what stuff corresponds to that. I feel like the cards that we've been seeing do that. I think that's all that happens on an Activate Power Struggle. We've already placed the markers on the current Power Struggle, so that's fine. The next one is a green and orange, I think. I can't tell the colors with my eyes anymore. There is no green anymore because Portugal's been disappeared. Which means orange. No one gets to choose this. This is DNPR. All DNPRs are the same colors. Annex an adjacent province. Prioritize provinces and areas. Okay. So orange would have to go here. Except they only do NPRs, so they would not do there. Do they go overseas? I don't think they ever go overseas through auto resolution. So we would target the one with the lowest tax income, alphabetical order. We need an orange. We got this kind of orange. Is this right? It feels like the other orange. Yeah, this looks like what we're using. Okay. I don't know where the other orange is. Have I mixed them? I can't really see to understand. Like, if it's orange-green, and blue-pink, I don't know. There's 2 oranges, right? And have I lost a counter set? Or have I combined them? Or am I not seeing a difference between these that should be there? I'm just lost. Like, there should be another whole set that is this color. Oh, I'm missing the point. Okay, so all the oranges have been used. Which would mean that I have to take one of these off, I guess, even though there's no instructions of which one to remove. Maybe there is somewhere, but I don't think there is. And spread somewhere else, I think. Anyway, no NPRs next to me, so I go for the closest NPR to the beginning of the alphabet. We got Lorraine there, LM. Frankfurt is F. I think we spread down here to Frankfurt, which makes about no sense, right? Nassau was kind of in a weird place like that. Piracy. Place the pirate ship into the trade node with the most merchants, first tiebreaker. Expanded node, second tiebreaker. Random. This is the first time I've ever seen randomized stuff on these placements. Usually it's like alphabetical. I'm surprised. Like, I wish they were all random. It feels stupid to like, well, you know, Bavaria is more susceptible to rebellion than Brandenburg because just what? Okay. Yeah, that's something I would definitely change. Okay, so what am I looking for again? Because I can't fucking remember. Place it into the trade node with the most merchants. Up here, definitely. The war the English have is out of, you know, is foiled. Even though there are navies patrolling that area and everything, pirates will just keep coming. And it does make sense. There's more merchants there. So it would be a continuous struggle. The problem is that nobody but England gives a shit, right? And now circles, and I've got some deaths happening. We'll figure out what they are. And this is why you don't want to put one of your rulers down until the last possible moment, and therefore you leave yourself in interregnums consistently because, you know, till the end of the turn. Because, well, the death mechanism. And I think any death mechanism would be that case, right? If you were like, hey, you know, take a Republic of Rome type thing where you randomly roll stuff, whatever. The death mechanisms that work in EU, in the original, I call it EU because that's what I'm used to, even though this is the same sort of trademark, whatever. Is based on, there's two ways. Basically, yes, you could die through combat, I think. It's really unlikely. Like if you lose a battle, I think leaders could die. And so putting your king in a battle that he's going to lose is terrible in that game. It doesn't matter too much here. Win or lose a battle, it's really just how many dice you're facing, whether or not you're gonna get those two of those double infantry hits rolled against you. So lots of infantry dice is bad to face. Somebody who has cav, who conceivably might be able to sweep around and have more likelihood of hitting a leader, or artillery, who's kind of random firing. And long-range fire might be more effective at killing leaders. No, that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that no matter how small their force is, that they get those double infantry hits, which come up the most on the white dice. You know, so, yeah. Whatever. It's not like it matters, you know, well, yeah, it's the kind of leader that you have present, which is going to matter. And of course, if you have janissaries, they're going to, not janissaries. Janissaries don't protect you. They don't do anything for you there. If you have military drill, and this kind of makes sense, you'll be a little bit more protected because you take a die away. Of course, it's not guaranteed which type of die you take away, I guess. You may have the choice of that. Or is it you take a white die away automatically? I don't know. If you take a white die away automatically, it doesn't really matter. Remove one of your enemy's battle dice. No, you get to choose, but you get to choose. Yeah, you can take away a white die, which is what you'll usually do. All right, so we'll take care of some of those deaths. And we had a pretty hefty amount of agings. I think the only ruler who aged was John for the Turks. I don't know why I placed him. I feel like maybe I had a fight. You know, I don't know. He was a bad choice to place because of this. Like, I think I placed him this turn, but too bad. We're going to pause on Spain because I had no idea I was going to spend an hour and a fucking half playing the French turn. But yeah, learned more shit about the system that, you know, really goes against all my intuitive thinking about how this, you know, what things represent and whatever. It becomes like, I don't know, you know, it's like I want to bend this game into being more like what it should be, in my opinion, right? And what it should be should represent, at the very least, what the EU computer game represents, right? And in that game, so in the original EU, religion, you couldn't change religion, basically. Sure, all the states start out as Catholic. It's sort of pre-programmed who's going to become Protestant. It feels really shitty. I love the idea of this religious system so much more. In the computer game, there's no limit on how many Protestants you have on the board, right? If Protestantism takes hold and starts sweeping things, if France goes Protestant, whatever happened in this game, that would all be fine. You could have all of Europe go Protestant, or all of Europe stay Catholic, if the right powers are able to fight things. Now, the likelihood of that, both of those very, very low. Here, very, very low as well. What you don't have is, oh look, there are enough Protestants, enough Protestant religion areas on the board. Something has to give. Either a counter-reform switches to whatever it originally was, or a Protestant switches to whatever originally was, so that I can expand Protestantism in this other direction. That's bullshit. That is, like, okay, it's one thing for me to attack it on, my preconceptions, my biases, whatever you want to say. But I think it is absolutely valid to say, whatever they were trying to do in this game, they failed to mirror the computer game's treatment of a lot of stuff. And here's one. And honestly, the places where I'm like recoiling from what happens are where it is not matching the computer game to the best of my understanding. Things like these cubes, things like the minor powers not being anywhere near as dynamic as they should be. Things like the border of Russia just cutting the world off. Things like the troops being abstracted so that like an entire war is basically fought in one place when it sweeps across the continent. Shit like that. And the religions here, and the revolutionary ideology. Shit like that is not played out that way in the computer game at all. The computer game resonates much, much better with what my intuitive understanding is. So it is actually pretty fair to say that my understanding is actually what they were trying to aim for if they were trying to match the computer game. And they were failing. They are failing massively in a lot of ways. They've taken it and abstracted and created a Euro game out of the computer game. So making arguments against EU, the original, not so good, right? Like, I like to make that comparison, but it's not so relevant. It's not what they were trying to design. Making arguments against my preconceptions, probably not that important on their own, except that the computer game does try to reflect a fair amount of the reality. And this game fails. Whatever it's worth on Raid, third or fourth time I did that battle, maybe fifth, I don't know. I stopped several times before I came up here at all. It ended up just making it through. So it might not have to do with the champions I had. It may just be I got lucky when I finished it the first time. or first couple times through, and now I got lucky again. I kind of miscalculated with Spain. I have 1 artillery and a couple of infantry. I could have taken out loans and done this better. It's going to cost me 2 cubes to attack all of Portugal. I counted it as 1, 2, 3, okay. It'll cost me 2 cubes no matter what. But actually, well, wait a minute. It's going to cost me 3, right? 1 to take this. This is a double town. And then 2 more. It would have cost 2 if I had artillery. So, I guess I'll do it. I don't know. I was kind of hoping to get rid of all my unrest, but I don't think I can do that easily. And that's going to give me 1, 2, 3 of these. Now I think I have to put cubes on vassals. That's 2 vassals wiped out. And here, I fill these in. This means England is kind of fucked. Let's take a look at how. They're out of cubes now because of the mass conscription and whatever. The mass conscription, which means they can't raise troops to be able to match the Spanish army size. So they're going to lose the war, which means Spain's going to have the powerful position of being able to make the decisions as to what happens. I think what this means is that the English have to pass, and in doing so, I got 2 things I got to do. One is to put this for $1, although I will be passing, so I'll actually gain $1. Let's grab that. Excuse me. Okay, so I gain $1 there, but I'm going to be paying off loans, etc. The other is to pick the ruler that I want to play, and I don't know, right? I think that, so this one is worth 6 cubes total, which is appealing, and I have an extra admin cube. This one's only worth 5. I'm going to play the one for 6. I was thinking about the one for 5 because those cubes appeal to me more, but that doesn't really help. And I don't have enough money to pay off any of my debt. I'd need 1 more buck. I think only 1 person has National Bank. That moves us to Austria. Austria's already passed over to Poland. 1 more pass and it's over. Spain has a fair number of cubes and kind of wants to do stuff. They kind of wanted to shift things, and they may have time to do it, to get an extra cube over so they can cure 3 of the unrest that they're facing. Now, Spain might take the status quo situation, but I don't think, I think they make peace with the vassal separately. I don't know if that's a separate piece or if I can conquer the vassal and there would still be a Portugal that would exist. I think this is actually the case as a vassal of England. I don't know what happens if I take the Portuguese crown. The marriage should still exist. And I guess the crown would move over there and Spain would capture Portugal. But I'm going to have to look in the rules to see about that. The funny thing is, you know, much as I harsh on where this game has failed, there is still something very appealing to it. And it's not just the scope. Anyway, over to Poland. Poland only has like 1 thing they can possibly do with their 1 cube. I think I do want to do it. And I am going to cure the unrest here. Now, we're going to be facing additional unrest, and I think that's going to hit my revolt chances and whatnot. That pushes us back around. France is still in existence. France has 2 military cubes. The passes haven't happened, so if I build an army, I have a chance to do something. Oh, I'm set up so that if I build an army down here, or here for that matter, I can do a military transition out to make it as far as the Gold Coast and continue. But what I will not be able to do, nope, I don't have to, yeah, I have to siege. So I would need to build an army, that's a cube, do a naval maneuver, say fill this, or move the forces over here. That would get me a war. I'm already at 2 cubes on this, but if I win the battle, I get a cube back. Great, I'm ready for siege. But here's the problem. If someone else passes, Poland, who has no cubes, as an example, I will not be able to conquer Mali. However, if I beat Mali, I won't have to pay the price for having gone to war with them. In terms of, I'll be able to get a peace from them. It doesn't really help me, but it does prevent me from losing a point. So I think that's what I want to follow through with. Alternatively, I could go march in and wipe out the English, or I could do something to England directly, like, I'm not going to be able, see, here's the thing, I'm not going to be able to get here easily. The French Navy is only 2 ships. I might have an extra cube, so I might be able to put like an admiral in play. Can't use the king as an admiral. At least there's that. Although Portugal should have a special role for that. I think they did at one point. I mean, certainly Prince Henry, but he didn't actually command navies as far as I know. He just established the navigation school and the push. So I'm not positive about that. The obvious example would be Barbarossa. But do you want to play Algiers as a major player? No, so don't worry about it. You could see an argument for Peter. Like, he never did, but he might have. Peter the Great. So what would be my biggest advantage? Is there anything I could gain? I am at war with England. I could march in here and liberate some Spanish areas. I have no interest in doing that. The English have already passed. They're not doing anything on their own, so they're no threat. So I think my best move is to try to not lose more off of Mali. Okay. I'm going to create an army over here. I don't particularly want to flood that, although there are advantages to it. You know what? Yeah, I'll do it here. That gives me an opportunity to move a ship into here so that I can do the transition. I could do that anyway, but no, I think I can only do the transition if I fill the area. Once again, 1 infantry, 2 artillery. I put a new king down, and he's going to give me an artillery die, which should actually be somewhat advantageous. My chances of winning are like they were before, though, pretty much. Not great. That's going to move me to Spain. Spain has not passed yet. Let me think about them. Choices for Spain. 1, do a reorg, get a cube over here. That'll allow me to cure unrest in 3 areas. 1, 2, 3. Move in and siege one of my own territories. Do a naval operation so that I can grab Madeira. I'm not going to be able to get out here. Do a naval operation so that I fight the English here, that's not going to work because I don't have shipping getting me out of Spain to there. So I'd have to fill one of these to do the naval operation. I could, if I was at war with Denmark, do something, but I'm not, so that's no biggie. So yeah, so my choices are to take Madeira, which I guess would make this where the Portuguese crown goes and hides. I still haven't looked that up, which is problematic. But Spain's going to gain a huge advantage off of England having chosen poorly, because this is part of the 7 Years' War card, which is now over there. I think the best option I have is to do the reorg. Let me see and cure some of my unrest. And let me see if there are cards I want to get rid of. I want one of these. I kind of want this. I may want the exceptional year. So I only have really one card I can fuck around with. I'm okay not playing around with my cards. So that puts me there. England passed. Austria passed, back around to Poland. I hope I collected the money for the passing. I think I did. Poland is going to pass last. That gives them $1. I got to check their cards. Excuse me. See what I got. I got one of these. I'll pay the $1 for that I just grabbed. I don't have this yet. I have to win these wars. What happened? Why was I not able? Somehow or another, I failed to take anything here when I was supposed to. What did I... you know what I did? I fucked with this, and I don't think I want to do that. Let me have spent that cube, okay, to conquer the capital, because that gives me certain other advantages in terms of a peace. No, I'm not going to be able to convert them. What the fuck can I do then? Am I bigger? I'm not bigger. Yeah, screw that. Screw that. Let's stick with what we did. And that was, we made our own capital safe from revolt, which I think is probably wiser anyway. I have a king. These aren't going to help me. I paid to put an extra card. I passed. I'm done. I'm back over here. This is the last round around. However, I'm going to go back downstairs because I'm pretty sure whatever I've got going on raid is well done by now. In terms of passing, or in terms of pausing and not playing for a little while, my pause there would have been one of the worst that I could do. I went downstairs. Luckily, my raid situation succeeded, and I very quickly found out that I couldn't go any further, so I'm doing the same run again, which means it'll take a while, and I can just let it go, and hopefully it'll succeed again. The reason this isn't a great time to pass is because I'm at the point where this is the last player turns in this round for two people, for France and for Spain. So now I'm just going to follow through with the things that I set up, right? So the French, I might as well send both boats out because they can always come back in. I could actually send a second one somewhere else, but it doesn't really help me to do that. So I'm going to shift through here, up to here, and to Mali again. Now remember, Mali's forces doubled, so it's got 4 infantry. I could pull them out. I don't really need to. But 4 infantry is enough that there could have been a leader. There will not be. I look for the combat dice. There they are. The French have 1 blue die. I don't like to have too many dice around. These I use enough French have janissaries, if I recall correctly. I don't think they have anything else. Cannon, shit, they got something up there. This revolutionary thing or whatever, which I don't know what it does. It allows you to refresh more troops during the replenish. Now what's strange is this revolutionary ideal stuff doesn't seem to increase, doesn't do anything to increase your manpower, which I do find very odd. It gives you these cheaper refreshes, which makes some sense. So it's kind of a mixed weirdness. To me, the big thing, and you know, maybe the cheaper refreshes explain that, but the big thing that happened with sort of the levy en masse is that the potential full army size got bigger. It also probably allowed you to call troops up more quickly. But the actual manpower that was available to France in their wars before was so much smaller than what they were able to put forward during the Napoleonic Wars. And Prussia, very similar situation. Prussia had a very low manpower, which went way up. Now, if you look at how other games represent this, it's probably, in particular, I'm looking at Empires in Arms. The French Revolution and the levy en masse is already accounted for in terms of you know, what the manpower availability is in France itself. And I'm okay with that, except for the fact that if France ends up giving up territory within their home country, that territory is probably overvalued. But if you look at Prussia, the country that probably came the closest to the same kind of levy en masse, the only thing that really comes with that is you start getting Freikorps. I don't think it actually, there's anything in that game which improves the total amount of troops. Now, if you look at War and Peace, it does account for it. It adds force pool, very much in like a Third Reich type style. It adds force pool increases as the game progresses. Austria has some Landwehr, which kind of present as that. Prussia has a fairly large percentage of crappy troops that they can raise up quickly. So this is sort of their levy en masse equivalent, which ends up not being as effective as the French one. Anyhow, in Empires in Arms, Prussia never gets the kind of manpower. Like, they can't recover after they lose a war because their manpower totals are so low, which is one of my gripes about that game. Like, a year or two, yeah, it doesn't really fill them up. They have a very good army to begin with, size-wise. Anyway, let's roll the French, and I get 1 hit total. Let me pull 3 of these, because this could actually take some time. The last one did not, and you know, I didn't pull them, but whatever. And the full force is present here. They do 2 hits on the French. This is not good. The French don't have much staying power. Now that I'm down to 1 unit, I can't retreat without losing, you know, that last unit. So I try again. And I get nada. And I'm wiped out again. Okay, so the French lose another battle. There's no penalty to losing battles, except, of course, you know, the troops that you lose and whatnot. But some of this game feels like it's like a glory type situation, a la Empires in Arms. I think EU has something kind of similar, which is like if you win an important enough battle, you get some points, victory points out of it. Doesn't happen very often. Now, did I screw up? Because I feel like I didn't spend my last cube. Because I shouldn't have had a... Oh no, I would have had a cube left. No, I would have had a cube left if I won the battle. Yeah, I think I screwed up and didn't spend my cube, because I think I should be cleared of cubes there. That's the end of the French, but if I had any advisors or anything, I'd have to play them now. This is where I forget, right? On the last person, sometimes I forget that that I need to play advisors and whatever. But really on these turns where I'm not passing, but it's my last turn. That brings it to Spain. I guess we can move the boat. Spain's goal was what? I moved things over so that I could buy off unrests. I have 3 cubes. I buy off, oops, just went Protestant. Terrible. I buy off 1, 2, 3 unrest, and that is the end. Now my way of remembering that has been consistently, or maybe not all that consistently, that I have to put this here. And now I do take a break. It's funny, I'm fine until I start to prepare to talk, and then the cough comes. Mainly because I don't need to use my throat, my voice, anything when I'm on my own. And as soon as I start thinking about it, I realize what's wrong. Okay, so I went through these. I checked on PR invasions to make sure that, Mali here did not have any chance to attack the French. They don't. First of all, there's French ships here, so I couldn't cross the sea zone, but it's not even allowed by sea. And obviously I can't go all the way back to France. But the fact that there's not an actual port there would have prevented it anyway. But it's not allowed within PR invasions. The rebels, these guys degenerated a little bit. Here we moved into... Actually, I'm not sure if I can do that. All but one. Nope. Can't move into here, which means this disintegrates, right? If there were no eligible... Well, there was an eligible adjacent area. Yeah, so this just sits here, not really causing any issues because there was an eligible area to move, but there were no troops to move in there. Because you can only move all but one. Weird. Okay. I don't know what that does, but anyway, it causes no problems. Peace resolution is going to be very complex, and I will pop in and out as needed, I guess, because I'm going to have to pay a lot of attention. Like, the first thing is automatic white peace. There may be some, but the problem is each war count an enemy's active allies as part of the enemy's realm. No, there aren't any. There's a cost to white peace, which is any PRs involved lose 1 point each. Now, I'm not sure if this is true or not. I like this because it means you shouldn't declare wars that you can't prosecute, which is the automatic white peace. But here it says total victory to enforce. And maybe this isn't the normal white peace. I don't know. But I think it is. So let's take a quick look at this to begin with. So, for example, France and England are in a condition where neither one. Well, first of all, France and Mali. This is a white peace. I was unable to capture it. And that is going to cost France a point. France and England, another case. Turkey, is Turkey at a white peace with anyone? Turkey and Spain are at a white peace. Let's take care of that one first, since Turkey officially holds this. So, yeah. So they each lose a point. You see how this is going to go. Everybody's going to lose a ton of points because they didn't prosecute wars versus people. France is the next one. France and England, again, they're not engaged with each other, which means they don't occupy each other's provinces. Now, whether or not this peace term applies, I think it does, right? Because white peace is not really defined elsewhere. Okay, so England and France are in a white peace. Turkey and France are too. Hold on. Let's do England and France first because we just scored that. Turkey and France are at a white peace. They did not engage in each other. Each one loses a prestige point. Okay. That gets us to Spain. Spain is only at war with England. We're not in a white peace here because of that. Because of that situation. So we're going to be going for a partial victory, total victory against the Portuguese holdings. And we'll see. I mean, basically, they both are sitting in each other's territory. Checking for. If any ongoing wars reach the automatic, oh, it's here. Neither side of the war occupies any of their opponent's provinces. Okay, this is interesting. Poland and Turkey, Poland failed to take anything. They have a white peace. This is what Poland wanted to avoid here. They have a white peace. Poland has to withdraw, and they each lose one. I was convinced that Poland had a cube to attack with, but I think something must have taken it away. I don't know. Okay. So we go back. Spain and England have a peace to conclude. So this is actually going to be pretty easy. Austria is not involved in any war. Poland is involved in a war with England. This is the one we forgot. They conclude a white peace. Okay. And what all this means, right, is that there's truces. So unless there's something like this coalition, which I think was the Napoleonic War, happening 50 years too early or whatever, or at least 25. I mean, we had the unrest in the colonies, but there wasn't really a revolt or anything of that nature. So I don't feel like we've had the American Revolution yet. I don't know. 7 Years' War had issues going on. So yeah, I think we've covered everything except the one remaining piece, which is Spain and England. Now, Spain has 2, 3, 6 armies. England has 2. Spain has won a partial victory, right? Because total victory has to be all of the enemy. You have to own everything. It's kind of a, wow, you either have nothing, you have a partial victory, which can be quite impressive because you can capture a lot of land with it or whatever. But it sounds like, there's three things in total victory. And, total victory is really total annexation. I don't think anything else qualifies as that. Well, white peace. Yeah, okay. I'm going to enforce a white peace when I have total victory. I feel like this is probably a typo. I think this is actually supposed to be the automatic white peace, but you might be able to do it through some other means. This means that we could keep the current board state, in which case we'd capture all of this. However, see, this is a vassal, not an ally, so I think we can take it. But we'd end up losing 2 provinces up here. Now, we could exchange a couple of Portuguese provinces for those provinces. However, Portuguese provinces are worth more. at least right now. And we have that eventual gain all of Spain, whereas I don't know if we have anything. Defend the Catholic faith. Okay, so this is the one that we keep having, but I don't know, 2D? Yeah, we haven't secured that. And 3A we haven't secured, which is this one. So we can't do this, even though we had the requirements for it for a long time. This one, obviously, we can't even touch. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see much other than the one that we met the requirements for, but can't take because we don't have, we haven't advanced in cards that precede it, which is weird. It's like, oh, look, there's no value to us holding the Spanish Netherlands because we lost. We didn't do something else. Even though we inherited those, they're not of value to us because we either have to do something in Italy or form Spain, and it's actually more than Spain. It's like we have to form the Portuguese, Spanish combined to get any value out of that. That feels weird. Okay. The reason for it, though, is before the Dutch revolt, it might be easy to get that. Although being counter-reform is probably not easy before the Dutch revolt. So, see, these aren't allies. This is the weird thing. These are not allies. These are vassals. But it doesn't talk about whips or whatever, the little town markers. It just talks about provinces. So I think that's legitimate. I could do humiliation. All occupied provinces are returned. The victor scores equal to 2 times the tax value of provinces returned to the loser. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd get 8. This is probably the most valuable thing. The loser loses the same amount. Nothing is lost from the other side. So I could get 8 prestige off of England. That's a lot of points. Humiliation may be the most valuable. Vassalization, I can't do that. I don't occupy the loser's capital and at least half their... This also can only happen to NPRs. And that probably makes sense. Although maybe you could convince me, like I say that I think I would allow full annexation, you could convince me that a major power could be knocked out of the game this way and replaced with, then they could play someone else. Forced conversion. You have to control the capital. That's not happening. Secure desired succession, not an option. There's no marriage. Full annexation, not an option. Negotiated peace. Conceivably, we could agree to do something else, but I don't see much point to it. So I think humiliation is probably my best choice. The only question is whether, well, maybe not, because of this. Yeah. So I'm going to go with keep current board state. But let's look at the points for the power struggle. How does it go? You get 1 for tax value in provinces you control. So that would be worth 4 right there, plus I get to control the territory. 1 for being the only PR with towns or vassals there, and 1 for having at least an alliance or a marriage there. I was thinking I would want to trade some of these for those, but honestly, I don't. because this is so far from me being able to score at any point, and this is actually worth quite a bit this turn. So, I think we'll just do a straight keep current board state, where, and I kind of fucked up here. This should be here. And I will give up, you know, my two Flemish provinces for control of Portugal. This is the net effect. The Portuguese crown moves over here with the royal marriage to the English. This territory went away. We spent to convert a couple of unrests. The English no longer had a claim to Flanders and Wallonia, if they ever did. So they're stuck with areas in unrest. I think that's the end of the peace choices. As we flip this over to truces as well. And that's going to put us to prestige penalties. Disputed succession, I don't think there are any. Occupied towns. The Spaniards finished their war, so there shouldn't be any there. But it's occupied by rebels as well. So I got to do a quick count of what people lost there. And like Spain is losing 2, 3, 4, right? Yeah. Ow. Max is 5, though. That can be interesting. Funny, Spain grabbed these. They did not deal with this. But they're not really interested in that, right? This is a power struggle. I forgot about. We got a truce here. The Poles grabbed this. I have no claim to that. How did I end up there? I don't know. There's not a lot of these left. And that's this cube. Turkey is suffering mightily from being revolutionary. I don't know when I made that choice, but boy, it's painful once you make it. If you have, you know, lots of areas that aren't revolutionary under your control. Ouch. Even with tolerance, etc., I'm still taking 6 of my provinces went over, plus I lost a cube for Egypt. Wrong, England does have a claim to Flanders over here. I didn't really notice it. But I don't want to expend it because during the religious phase, one of them would be turning back up anyway. So I'd only get 1 out of it. And I've got an army there. It might be able to defend against whatever shows up. Maybe. I picked up tolerance, I believe. And that actually saves their ass. They still have some vassal issues that they have to deal with. Cremona went back over, but it does mean that these 2 areas, one revolutionary, one Protestant, I'm safe from, and I don't think I have anywhere else where I have a problem. Poland still, still has tolerance, but again, like the Turks, they're running into big problems. They've got revolutionary showing up here. They've got orthodoxy here, Protestantism here, Protestantism there. They've got serious issues. I lost a cube. That's the vassals. That just 1 cube takes care of all the vassals. As long as, you know, I've got one in the right place, which they disappear, and then it's hard to remember to put them back. Poland's in no position to keep expanding. They probably did the best. They probably were best off not expanding. But had I captured the capital or whatever, I could have done a humiliation on the Turks. That would have been worth something. Yeah. Certainly it would have been worth capturing something. At the worst, I could like negotiate some sort of peace to give it back. But yeah, the East is falling apart there. Austria, like I said, is in okay shape. Now we go to a bunch of people. No one's still at war, but some people, many people, have basically no stability. So they're going to get an additional unrest. That would be everyone. All right, time to start rolling some dice. Something screwed up. Spain should have an unrest there. And just looking, there's a religious there, they don't have tolerance. My way through the Spaniards, I noticed, wow, the French have a lot of money. They're going to pay off, I think they can only pay off one loan. Doesn't look like I have 16 bucks or 18 bucks or whatever. But it's because they didn't pass, so I forgot. Just like I forget to put these things there, I also forget, hey, you got to pay off your loans, right? For the English, they had to convert one of their Portuguese vassals over because, yep. But after rolling them, hey, 2 rebellions, which is cool because I already had the cubes placed. Yeah. And they almost went bankrupt. They're at like, 5 debt, but with just a couple bucks left. So a couple more bad rolls and things, could have been even worse than the rebellions that are happening. Rebel dice can be such a crapshoot, right? I mean, Turkey lost almost nothing off of theirs. They got no rebellions, and they had a few troops, maybe a couple of cubes or whatever. Cubes, that trims away your capability to do anything on the next turn. There is that. But England's close to bankruptcy. Poland, with their, with their tolerance and whatever, but they were heavy enough that they ended up, fairly deeply in debt. Not a good situation. It's, it's very random what your effects will have. England got pretty bad effects, a couple of rebellions and other stuff. And, I mean, that's putting them in the kind of position that Spain is in right now, which is really troublesome. That's going to put us over to the income and upkeep phase. I'm not going to do anything there today. I'm not feeling too hot at this point. Stayed up too late, fucking around with shit. Okay, so I slept about 3.5 hours or slow, and decided, well, okay, I'll try to stay awake during the day, and maybe that'll shift my sleeping schedule to something I can deal with. Much as, I've been kind of accepting of retirement, I actually have a couple of contacts. One, somebody I know who's working for a company who's asking for something. One from somebody I know who, has a job that, he might have, his input might be useful, right? And then a third just random headhunter, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll consider work, because honestly, I think it would be healthier for me. I don't know if I'll be able to handle, but more importantly, my track record of getting jobs is so shitty that it probably won't happen. But anyway, with three different things all lining up, I'm like, well, I really ought to be awake during the day sometimes, especially after missing dancing, right? But I went through the income and upkeep phase almost entirely, and the results are pretty much as you'd expect. Kind of iffy cube holdings. Money holdings are down because, there's enough chaos and enough problems going on that the income's just not as good as it used to be. So, yeah, we still got a 25er on Turkey, even though it's in hell, but it's so big and so rich. But nobody else reached one. Poland's got 20 bucks worth. Austria's got like 20 bucks worth. England is deeply in debt. Spain is okay there. France is okay, The biggie is not a hell of a lot of cubes available for this upcoming, third of the 4 sets of cards that are going to be out. Once again, though, I make it through all here, and somehow I skip. You know, it's this one little line down here, score any active crusade. Okay, and I'm like, oh, okay, I know this stuff, crusades and other shit. Well, this is where power struggle sneaks in, and remove the crusade excommunicated token and all books. But, you know, this is how I always miss the power struggle thing. I've done everything up until then, including, or up beyond then, including the board and status, and I looked here and I'm like, wait, where's the power struggle? Which is always what I catch myself at. It is an advanced roll. Okay. So, excuse me. So it's tax value of provinces, only PR in that province, and then having at least an alliance or marriage. Each of those is worth 1. So let's go through the sequence and catch these. Westphalia, which I think is up here. Can't really be sure, but I see a power struggle marker there. So we'll remove that. And England gets 1 off that for an alliance. Okay, the next one is Lower Saxony, which is this one over here. England gets 1. Poland gets 1. Oh, fuck. I do not, not holding up well here. All right. Regular Saxony. That's here. Austria gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for controlling it. That's sweet. Hey! All right. Pomerania. Over here. Poland gets 2 for their alliances. Yeah, and Turkey's kind of out of this game, right? They don't get to play in the 7 Years' War. Prussia. Prussia's over here. It's vassalized. That counts, right? We look again. We have to always look shit up. They control. Vassals count as half. Okay. So that's 2 plus 1 for being the only one in there is 3 for Austria. Okay. And there's something for beating up. Maybe that was last time. Okay. Wielkopolska. Oh, that's this one. Poland gets 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus 1 is 5. Okay. It's really tight up there at the top, isn't it? Bohemia. Don't get to count this. 1, 2. Seems we've lost another Bohemian territory. 1, 2, and 3 for being the only one in there for Poland. Uh-oh. And it wasn't really the war that trashed Turkey. It was the fact that the 7 Years' War doesn't give them points. And again, maybe there's a balance thing in there, but it really kind of doesn't feel it. And Portugal. Portugal swung hands really heavily. Now, wait, is this tax value? Fuck me. Did we screw the... Yeah, it's tax value. Fucking hell. Okay, Bohemia was the double town. I think that's the only one. So for Spain, it's 2, 3, 4, plus 1 is 5. And a biggie is we took a lot of points away from the English by seizing Portugal. Of course, that's England's own fault. They didn't have to align themselves as pro-Turkish. All right. So that's the base points. Now we look at this. PRs score 2 for each distant, where they are the only PR to have an adjacent, and 2 for each distant, where they are the only PR with adjacent ships. Ships is a word. Okay. So we look here. The only PR in both cases, so it's monopolies. So there's a here, and no, they both are in there. There's a here, and there's lots of people adjacent to that. And I don't see any other brops. Now, what I do see, but it doesn't count, is this Portuguese colony here, which is adjacent to both of these, but England does not get to get any points for that because it's only Portuguese. It's a vassals, not their own. Okay, so I think that's the end of the 7 Years' War, and all the brooks and brooks are done. And now we will look more closely at what the Napoleonic Wars generates. Okay. Castile. Sign. Let's just take capitals of everywhere, right? Sure looks like it. Brandenburg. Hey, Brandenburg hits again. Austria. Now, Turkey's had no reason to ever go into Austria all game. Vienna was a major goal of theirs. I don't know. What was that? Northern Italy or Central Italy? Central Italy. That's over here. Maz and Malk of Polska. There we go again. You know, we're giving the Poles their point. I don't see anything for Turkey there. Moscow and Riga, and finally one for Turkey, Egypt. This is one Turkey would have a shot at in any game. All right, well, those are the base. PRs only score prestige for areas where they had no core provinces at the start of the game. What does that mean? I think that means out of this list up here. So holding your home area is unimportant for you. You might as well give it up. Like, if you can gain something, it's no big deal if you lose something there, which feels stupid, but. PRs score 5 if they occupy the capital of an opponent. Okay. Now, this is a little weird because chances are, and remember, the Napoleonic Wars only really, well, it depends on what you consider them. The Revolutionary Wars plus the Napoleonic Wars covers a large enough period that it would make sense that holding someone's capital and staying at war with them, it's not legal to occupy their capital if you're not at war with them. And you score these after the peace phase. So holding someone's capital gives you 5 points, but only if you stay at war with them. So you're going to have to keep the war going. Now, if we were looking at much shorter turns, 5, maybe even 10-year turns, that would make a lot of sense. The feeling is that these turns are more like 15 to 20 years, which is really the length of what I would call the actual Napoleonic Wars. Again, maybe I'm reading too much into the card and everything in terms of its name, but, you know, it feels fucked up, right? That's all I have to say. A lot of this game feels fucked up. Now, these are edge case things that I can't really compare to the computer game. in any sense of the word. Can I compare them to the old EU? Well, here's the thing with the old EU. Depends on how you look at the events. The way I tended to play the events was I let them happen. You never know if they're going to actually happen, but I let them happen and then read them. At least the first time I played. So I didn't have this preparatory knowledge. I had vague ideas of what was likely to happen, but I didn't know how the game mechanisms would play in regard to that. And that actually caused issues. Anyway, I think we're done. But if you recall, I always deal these out before I... And again, trade, wow. What an unused functionality, right? I mean, Britain still is kind of the only person who really needs to make money off trade. We had Britain fired off one or two of their merchants last time, but with the cube limitations and everything, you're just not going to get much money off trade because money has been not the limiting factor. It's your fucking cubes. So unless you could like spend cubes on trade to get cubes, which wouldn't, you know, given that I don't understand what cubes even mean, wouldn't be necessarily unreasonable, right? Like, whatever they are, they're very amorphous and meaningless to me. Okay. Discontented bourgeoisie. This is beginning to sound like French Revolution too. All players must either pay 3 admin and 2 military or lose a stability and add unrest to all their large towns. Ouch. If you have constitutional monarchy, you may draw a diplomatic action card. Oh, wonders. I mean, it might be okay, but you're looking at the second to last deck in the game, so you know it might be a couple of cubes for some bucks. Players with absolute monarchy lose a stability in addition to the above, but gain a military. I guess that's also in addition to the above? I don't know. You know? Or does it cancel out the military here? Now, remember, well, no, it wouldn't cancel out. It is obviously additive because they have a choice here. And that comes with more revolution and some unrest. Okay, well, we're definitely in the revolution here. I don't know why we had the Grand Coalition. I'm guessing that's 7 Years' War stuff. You gain a military, this reign of terror. Ooh, you can make the Jacobin Club your king. Pick a player, even yourself, with a revolutionary regime who will gain 2 military. Yeah, okay. Set their stability to -2, bonus, and place 4 rebels and 2, I guess, rebel ideology. Of course, that would be sucking it out of somewhere else if I was playing by the rules in their realm. They must immediately either discard their ruler or 2 advisors. If they discard their ruler, Jacobin Club becomes their ruler, which isn't terrible. Right now, the revolutionary ideology, and I find this really weird, like, the revolutionary ideology, again, by my reading of history, or by my recollection of history, of what I've read before, of what I understand, there was nowhere near this sort of quasi-religious unrest happening throughout the world or throughout France, to make things more clear, back in 1750. Again, maybe I'm missing something. Certainly, the philosophers were active then. You know, you had your clubs and everything that were espousing these ideals, but it was all very coffee shop type stuff, right? It was like, you know, the revolutionary who sits in the coffee shop chatting. It wasn't the kind of thing that would cause cities to be revolting and be in contradiction to the religion of the area. Anyway. Declaration of Independence. Okay, here's the U.S. In two areas with adjacent to North America, adjacent to the North American bloc, and all areas with adjacent to the land on the chosen areas, add pink, even in those with core provinces of PRs. How many core provinces of PRs are going to be over there? I don't know. Remove all towns and rebel towns in those areas that already had unrest or rebellion, and add unrest and one army in each remaining area. Then you can either take a free declare war action targeting this DNPR or gain an alliance with them. That's interesting. So we are going to see rebellion just sweep through, and this is weird, right? It's everything adjacent to the North America. That would run from Guyana up to the Hudson Bay, is all going to be affected by this. Now, the actual impacts are going to be, these will revolt, the two English in unrest, and the others will all be claimed. And you can kind of argue that's kind of a Monroe Doctrine type of thing, right? That everything else is claimed. The vassal, the Portuguese up in the Hudson Bay, the Danes, they're not affected by this at all. So it's not really the Monroe Doctrine. It's like, I don't know what. I think what that's meant to try to represent is that the Americas kind of claimed Canada. But you know what they didn't claim at this point? They didn't really claim Florida, which certainly would be in it. They didn't claim Mississippi, which the French had some level of possession over. And they sure the hell didn't do anything to claim Mexico or Venezuela or anything like that. And so the effects of this are a little high, unless you're looking at the collateral effects of like the Monroe Doctrine, which doesn't come out yet, right? But we shall see. One thing is that this is all one selection of cards. So if we're looking at the American Revolution here, that's 1775, right? That kind of gets triggered off. You could say even earlier, but let's put that as our sort of latest point, because that's an important concept, that it's the latest point. That means we're looking at 45 years for this deck, minimum. That's assuming that this is sort of the first thing that fires off. 45 years for the two pieces of the deck. Does that fit? Yeah, that's like 22 and a half, right? Okay, that's about where my calculation is. I'm guessing the Grand Coalition was, I don't know who. I don't know which side, you know. Was it England and Prussia? I doubt it. The other side was Spain, Austria, France, Russia. So that sounds more like a Grand Coalition. I'm not familiar with the term being applied there. You know, I kind of want to break into Clash of Monarchs and see if they call it the Grand Coalition there, because I may just not be familiar with that term being used for the sides in. Again, I tried to Google it, and it was not helpful. It all came up to, you know, political coalitions, and then the French Revolution, and then going back to Spanish Succession era. Unfortunately, that wasn't too helpful. Grand Coalition was not mentioned there, but there was no real word for any of either of the alliances there. I look at Frederick the Great, that's not going to have anything in it unless I have like some of the S&T historical stuff poking in there. Yeah, I mean, it's possible this sucker would, a pragmatic war, because the question is, see, no, because there's two alliances, right? There's a Maria Theresa, there's an Austrian Succession War alliance, and then there's a 7 Years' War alliance. And obviously, the 7 Years' War card only applies to one of those wars, because, and I guess it applies to the 7 Years' War by name, because the alliances sort of flipped. At least France and England flipped who they were supporting. Trying to think about Russia. I think Russia was anti-Frederick the whole time. Is there anyone else you would bring in? Well, Spain probably was allied with France for the entire time. So, I mean, it's possible that for the Austrian succession, there was something called the Grand Coalition as well, or instead. But my assumption here is that it's for the 7 Years' War. Anyway, we've done everything we want to do before we load this one up, except blather on and bloviate. So I guess we should cut it here and send it up.